Hello, everyone, and welcome to Soul Standing. My name is Beth, and I'm here today to talk to you about E.B. White. Now, his full name is Elwyn Brooks White, but he was nicknamed Andy when he was in college, and that name stuck with him throughout the rest of his life until he passed away on October 1st, 1985. His stepchildren all referred to him as Andy, his co-workers, his wife, everyone. That was his name. So he published under the name E.B. White, but it was almost a pseudonym because he went by Andy. So his actual name turned out to be his pseudonym. But he was born on July 11th, 1899, and as I already mentioned, he passed away on October 1st, 1985. He was born in Mount Vernon, New York, and attended college at Cornell University in Ithaca. He graduated from there in 1921, and he always wanted to be a reporter, a journalist, a writer. So he graduated from Ithaca and then pursued his career as a reporter. He was freelance for 7 years, I believe. Let me check my notes. 6 years. He joined the New Yorker as a writer and contributing editor in 1927, and that is where he met his lovely wife. Catherine Sargent Engel was the very first fiction editor of the New Yorker, which I find fabulous because it was in the 1920s. So for her to be a woman reporter was one thing, but also to get to go in and be the editor and all of that, just fabulous for the New Yorker. I love that for them. And they were married in 1929. Now she had a couple of kids, and so he became this stepfather. And in a very sweet editorial that his stepson, I believe his name is Robert, that he did about Andy, he said that Andy was not trying to be a second father. He was just trying to, help. And Robert said, I wasn't looking for another dad, but Andy was more like this really cool older dude he could look up to, and they had a lot of fun. And he was very childlike at heart, and so they were able to do a lot of things together that just have really stuck with Robert. And, he said he still goes out to the family farm in Maine, and it's almost like you sit down at the table and you expect for Andy to walk in, even though he's been gone for 20 years at this point, or he's been gone for 37 years at this point. But the article was published about 10 years ago, so it was very, very sweet to read the words of a stepson who grew up with this famous author who was just Andy. And that's that simple, personal, direct, personable style that he lived is what made his writing so popular. He had that very simple, very personal, I'm looking at you, I'm talking to you, even if it's written down, even if I'm talking to you through the words in my book. And, he spoke to children the way he spoke to adults, very direct. This is what's happening. I'm not trying to change my language. I'm not trying to dumb it down or elevate it. I'm just telling you like it is. And that's one of the things that Robert said, was that he always spoke like that as well as writing like that. And that is one of the reasons why his writing was and is still so popular. Now, he wrote essays on rural life for the New Yorker. They bought a rural farm in Maine and lived out there, and he got animals and all sorts of stuff he was very excited about. He also co-authored a book called Is Sex Necessary with James Thurber. This was a spoof on sex manuals from the time. It was published in 1929, and there were a lot of manuals and essays, articles coming out about Freudian theories and ideas about sex. Is it necessary? Why are you feeling like this? Why do you want to do it? Why do you not want to do it? If you want to do it, and this is why you want to do it, then this is how you should do it, etc., etc. And so they wrote this this manual called Is Sex Necessary or Why You Feel the Way You Feel. And it was just a series of essays spoofing all of the manuals coming out, and it was apparently very popular. He also has several collections of his essays, his articles, his letters, um, and poems and sketches that have been published. And he wrote 3 children's books. Stuart Little, which came out in the 40s. I wrote down 1945, but now I'm thinking I was wrong and it was 41, but it was somewhere in the early 40s. We also had Charlotte's Web, which came out in 1952, and The Trumpet of the Swan in 1970. He was awarded a Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is given to a civilian if they have shown a meritorious aid to world peace, safety, things of that nature. He was also given a Pulitzer Prize Special Citation and the National Medal for Literature. And I have no idea why The Trumpet of the Swan was written. None. I'm going to guess that it was inspired by Animals on the Farm because that's what happened with Charlotte's Web. However, I have no idea about that. But Charlotte's Web was inspired because he walked into the barn one day to see a big spider weaving its web above the doors, and the pigs and the other animals were just rolling around in the hay in the barn, and that inspired the framework for Charlotte's Web. But the most interesting inspiration for me is Stuart Little, which is pretty handy considering the fact that that is the book we are reading this month as our very first classic children's literature book club book. But the inspiration behind that is in a letter to a reader, E.B. White stated that he was inspired by a dream of a mouse-like person who was nicely dressed, courageous, and questing. In another interview, he stated that he saw like a very rat-like gentleman. So I don't know. I don't know if the rat-like gentleman inspired the dream or if he started seeing rat-like qualities in people because of the dream. But either way, this dream inspired him and pushed him to write short stories that he then sent to his nieces and nephews. Trying to entertain them. He would write the stories down and either send them to the children, or like when he went and visited, he would have a stack of stories that he'd written just for the visit. And they were so excited. They wanted more about Stuart and the Littles family. And so those stories eventually became enough that he coagulated them into Stuart Little, the novel that we are reading this month. So that, I think that is just absolutely hilarious. He had this dream of a person that was very mouse-like, but courageous and very sharply dressed. So he wrote a story about it. And that just, I love that so much. That's how I do a lot of my writing, is I'll have a dream or like a random idea pop into my head because I turned too quickly and saw something out of the corner of my eye and it wasn't there, but my brain was like, what was that? This is a whole story about it. So I love that that's how Stuart Little came to be. As I said, he did pass away in 1985, so he has been gone for 37 years, but his beloved stories continue on with us. I hope that you enjoyed this little biographical trip down E.B. White's, I almost said lane. That's not where we're going with this. Down his life path, just a little bit of information about the author. If you know anything else that you find super interesting, please drop it below. If you want to read Stuart Little with us and you haven't picked it up yet, you have plenty of time. I will be making a discussion video over the book at the end of the month, and we will be discussing it on Goodreads in the Goodreads group, which I will leave linked down below. Please come join us. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this and any other book that we decide to discuss in the future. Until next time, guys, please stay safe. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.